Here we go, here we go. What's that? Someone beat a new hardest 2-player level on LRR. And they're calling it easier than sides of my mind. Let's cook 'em, chat. On the 10th day of Christmas, Rob gave to me a silly little gamers out here playing GD. Here they were, trying to beat Tenkai, but little did they know they were not that guy. But you know me, it's the least I can do. It's Lil Meow here, spraying ops with my crew. Think you're dumb with this grand adventure, but here it is acting as a door to my record. But it's all fun and game till I hopped on the mic. It was all over once I hopped past that spike. My bars are devious, your flaws are mischievous. I'm done here, it ain't even that serious. Damn, you're fucking cooked, bro. You thought you could beat Tenkai and call it easier than size of my mind? No way, no way, it's not happening in my book, bro. I own this bitch! Yeah! I hope you enjoyed my debut into the rap scene. Anyway, I started learning the level backwards. I found it motivating, getting runs to 100. I noticed that the last duel, although still very hard, was oddly doable. I was still unsure if I was ready to commit to the level at this point, especially 83 to 85. This section includes 2 skill-based game modes at once. Usually in 2-player levels, timings are very much preferred. You can find click patterns and visual cues that make the part mostly consistent. However, in this part, we have a wave and a ship. This part is by far the hardest section of the duel. The way I was able to do it was to look in the middle of the screen while focusing on the ship. Since the ship is momentum-based, it was much harder to do it blind. While focusing on the ship, I found that if I clicked both inputs at the same time, aligning with the spikes in the ship, I could pass the first 3 clicks of the wave. But then, we are introduced to the evil saw of Super Doom. The best I could find was to do a reverse microclick, completely blind, since if I just let go, I would oftentimes hit the ground spikes on the floor. This part is one of the big choke points of the level. After doing the piggyback section and slowly moving back bit by bit, I was able to complete the entire last duel on day 1. No way.
You did the run? I beat it.
Dude.
Oh. Bro.
On day 2, I started with learning the second duel. Now that I was confident with the last duel for the most part, I could continue slowly moving back until I learned the whole thing. One thing I noticed immediately is that the second duel was so much harder to learn than the last. It has much more awkward click patterns that seem to break at random. The last UFO cube section right before the last duel ship was insanely awkward and caused a lot of troubles when I tried to connect runs. I wasn't able to find a consistent method of pulling off the ship until the very end. I had many ideas that worked for a little bit, but then stopped working when I moved back. Eventually, I was met with the 66 ship wave duel. This part is insanely difficult, and it seemed impossible, until I found the legendary ship skip. Using the slope on the bottom, I was able to hold for most of the ship, which allowed me to focus on the wave. This single-handedly made the duel feasible. Still very hard, but feasible. After a few hours of learning, the best run I was able to get was 63 to 79, which include most of the second duel, most notably the duel ship right at the end of the duel.
I went too high.
After a few days, I started chipping away at the level again. With my newfound sleep consistency, my goal was to conquer the second duel. The first half of the duel was very awkward. The red orbit 57 was a major choke point. You need to hit it super late to not hit a floor, and at the same time manage the other icon so it does not miss the key. Overall, not complex to understand, but very hard to pull off. The dual robots also gave us some trouble, since they not only relied on when you clicked, but also when you released. It was very difficult to find consistent strategies, which accounted for both icons at once. When I finally was able to get somewhat consistent, I did manage to get 57 to 91, which was huge. Not only did I do the entire second duel, but I also passed all the choke points of the third duel. That's section 3. It's the shortest one. Crying emoji.
No fucking way. No way. On day 4, I set my sights on trying to do 57 to 100, which would be the second duel to 100, even with 57 to 91. No, I found that 68 to 73 was fluctuating in consistency. One attempt it would feel supernatural, then the next it would feel completely alien. This didn't really change until near the end of the grind. After a few hours, I was able to get 57 to 100, with only one duel left to learn.
Please. I want to be done with this, please.
Yes! Oh my god.
Did it run?
I did the run. Learning the first duel was very difficult. The first 15 or so % wasn't bad at all, just took some creative planning, but the last 10% of the duel is rough. Again, the skill-based game modes come to ruin the day with the 52 wave. It's not that hard to see why this part is inconsistent. Not only do you have to do a one space gap with the wave, but also manage the spider. Doing both at once was super hard to figure out. On top of that, the transition after the wave is super awkward. Oftentimes I would pass the wave just to die immediately to the robot. However, the duel did have some leeway. I found that if I focused on the spider, the wave wasn't the worst to do blind. Using a visual cue in the decoration and click patterns, this duel too became consistent enough to justify going from 0. But we still have more to learn, so we can't go from 0 yet. The 52 duel wasn't the only choke point in Duel 1. Right before, we have the 48 wave duel. You might be able to see a pattern with these choke points. Anyway, this duel is brutal. Something that kept bugging me was being able to slide underneath the size portal. You need to be small to go down fast enough to make it to the teleportal, so being small is a must. But for some silly reason, the click pattern I got comfortable with just so happens to line up perfectly to slide right under. This was a huge mental struggle, trying to unlearn the click pattern and relearn a new one, just for something else to break with the new one. That's a big struggle with 2-player levels in general. After it was all said and done, I was still super iffy on a lot of the first duel, but I really wanted to pull off the whole thing. I spent a few hours on it, and I did the whole duel. I did the whole first duel. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Okay, lock in. No! I did it! Every duel was learned. Now all that was left was to string them all together. Even though I learned every duel, that didn't mean I was consistent with every duel. My next goal was to do the first and the second duel in one run. Okay. Oh, I missed a skull. Which one? Let's review. Here I missed the skull. The part that I thought of as a break suddenly stopped working again, needing to unlearn the click pattern and learn a new, much harder, click pattern. This is the tedium of 2-player levels. You rely so heavily on muscle memory, but muscle memory is not dynamic. One slight modification could ruin an entire click pattern. You might have the pattern down, but timing is just as important. All of these pieces come together to make 2-player such a difficult achievement. Regardless, once I had the new click pattern down, I was able to pull through and get the run I was aiming for. Thank you, dude. Okay, come on. Oh my god, dude, no fucking way. Why did I die like that? That's so insane, though. I passed everything. With this, I felt ready to tackle the level from 0. As you might know, Tenkai has a very boring and long pre-drop. The first 40%, even on LRR, is still super easy in comparison to the rest. Not much learning had to go into it, as I had already learnt it when beating it with a friend. I started the day off with refreshing my muscle memory with the duels. I did my usual 76 to 100, 57 to 80, 38 to 65, and so on, doing each duel at least once. When I felt ready, I switched to the main copy and gave it all I got. Not too long after I got my first duel attempt.
Oh wow.
Incredible.
Then another. Then another. As expected, the pre-drop was still quite consistent despite the lower frame rate. Although I got a bunch of duel attempts, none of them really went anywhere. Until Oh my god. I fluked most of the first duel. This was huge! After 2 weeks, I finally had the level with 2 runs. It had already been a few hours, so I decided to cut it there for the day, happy with my progress. The next day was more of the same. I couldn't really expect to match that insane progress from the day prior, but I wouldn't get anywhere if I didn't try. It started with my usual warm-up runs, then I went from 0. To my surprise, I was oddly consistent with the first duel. I passed it from 0 multiple times. I did get 67 and 68, and then... Come on. No way! I fluked the ship? Not only that, but I also passed the notorious 79 UFO. And the wave. My run was only halted by the wave ship duel, which, I mean, I can't say I didn't expect, but getting there was insanely big. I knew there would be no way I'd get back there anytime soon, so the day ended quite promptly after getting the run. Day 9 started cautiously optimistic. I knew I was capable of beating the level at this point, but still the idea of doing all the duels in one run still felt like a pipe dream. I needed to take one step at a time. I again started by doing my usual warm-up runs, but it felt a bit different today. There wasn't choke points stopping me today. I was getting to the second duel left and right, but the ship duel was a huge roadblock. Did it even matter if I was consistent if I couldn't do anything with it? I wouldn't have to ask that for long. Yes! 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 I just beat Tenkai! I'm fucking 75! What the fuck? And just like that, it was over. I hope I could... Fuck. And just like that, it was over. I hope I could put in perspective how mentally taxing playing 2-player levels is. If not, I hope it was interesting at least.